Hey Dollhouse people, Whitney LaBrie here, and today we're going to keep on going with our fall themed room box. Today we're going to be concentrating on a few accessories, including some mini paintings of some fall scenery. I'm going to try to do a step-by-step painting for those of you who'd like to follow along, so let's get started. Hey everybody, so I'm excited of course because this is accessory day. Accessories, as you know, are some of my favorite things. Last week, this is where we ended up. We did finish the walls, the flooring, the miniature fall garden. I think I mentioned that I was probably going to change the furniture around, and I did. I found that putting the little rocking chair in the corner where the removable wall is actually gave me a little bit more space in the area, changing the bed over and then putting the dresser on the other side. And I think it actually looked a little bit more cohesive as well. So for today's accessories, I wanted to do a couple of miniature paintings, and this was actually a suggestion by a viewer to do a little bit more miniature painting. Here are my supplies that I'm going to be using. I bought these little tiny canvases here. These are a little bit different than I used before. A lot of times I'll use a thinner one, but this one was a thicker canvas, and I thought that this would actually be really cute. So I bought some of those. I'm just going to do 2 paintings today. Other things I'm going to need are my handy pen here in pink, and then here's my brand new small paint brushes, and I'm going to need a couple other little ones as well. And of course my coffee. And there is one more thing I need whenever I do miniature paintings. That is my little tiny miniature Bob Ross, as he inspires me, and so we're just going to put him over here. Here is my inspiration photo for the first painting. This is actually photography by a gentleman named Simon Dell, and you can actually purchase this picture if you wanted to. There's several different ones to choose from, but I'm going to be painting this today, this miniature painting. I'm going to make it look a little bit more cartoonish than what we have going here. Before I paint, I like to sketch things out, and whenever I do that, I think of drawing a lot of times in shapes. For the apple, it's the main piece here. I'm going to put it into the center, and whenever I draw a little apple, I just kind of think of it as a really plump heart, you know, that doesn't, and in this case I'm not going to quite connect the base because I'm going to add a little circle right in the center, and then I'm just going to add the stem. For the base, I'm not going to do pine cones. I think what I'd like to do here maybe are a couple leaves, but if I did pine cones, it would be a similar shape. They're shaped very similar to little footballs. I think I'm going to do a couple little acorns on the side here, a few of those, and then also the little cranberries too, which of course are just little circles. And the acorns are also kind of similar to tiny little footballs with hats. Here I'm going to do 2 semicircles. These are going to be the eyes, somewhere where the nose will be. Really, the little face is also shaped like actually a little poop emoji. If you want to know the truth, it kind of looks like a little poop emoji. For the second painting, this is the print that I found. Actually, this is not a print. This is just somebody's Etsy felt mouse that they sell. And then they just took a photo of the mouse that they're selling for their Etsy shop. I thought this mouse was absolutely adorable. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch this one out as well. And so my idea really is that the little apple mouse is kind of like Brie, my little mouse, when she was like maybe a baby. And maybe this is her brother Havarti as well when he was a little younger. And so when I'm sketching out this one, I'm basically starting with the body here. The body is going to kind of give me the scale for the whole rest of the drawing. So I'm just doing his little body, which he's almost shaped kind of like a water drop or a teardrop. And then I'm going to do 2 little feet on the bottom. His little tail here is kind of like a little S. I'm just marking out where his arm is. And then his other little hand and also the scarf are right over here. Here's his little scarf, just shaped like a rectangle, really. And then his head is also very similarly shaped to a little bit of a football as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that in. And then his mouse ear is, of course, a semicircle. Now I'm going to draw out the leaf umbrella. So I kind of made a little mark there so I knew how far up to take it. The leaf is shaped very similar to a misshapen cloud with more jagged edges. There's his little eye about right where it's going to be, his nose, mouth. And I feel like the scarf might be a little too tall, so I'm just going to bring his head down a little bit, make his head a little bit more round. I'm just going to mark out the background so I can go ahead and add a color in that area, and it also will give me a little bit of perspective too. All the colors that I'm going to be using today are all going to be acrylic paint. I will list them in the description for those of you interested in any of these these colors for any of the projects that you're working on. This is Tart green here. This is basically just going to be my background color behind the apple. Then I have the celery green color here, and this is going to be the base coat for the bottom of the painting. I usually will go in with a nice base coat because they do absorb quite a bit, so I really want to make sure that I do a nice base coat. I'm using engine red for my apple here, and then this is Hauser green, and I'm going to use this as a base coat on those two leaves at the bottom. Then I'm going to take just basic brown. I'm going to fill in the stem, and then I'm going to fill in around the mouse. Now the mouse in the photograph is brown. I'm going to do a white mouse because I'm acting as though it's Brie when she was a little baby mouse. Now I'm filling in the cranberries with this color called Cherry Cobbler. I'm taking Wicker white, and I'm going to base coat my little mouse in that Wicker white. And even though the canvas is white, you do want to go ahead and base coat your whites because it will take other paint on top of it very well. You know, the red in the picture is more of a orangish red. So I'm going to take some regular red, bright red, and a little bit of a color called spiced pumpkin. I'm going to mix them together, and I'm going to fill in the red apple. And hopefully this will give it just a little bit more of a brilliant color, a little bit more of an orange color that we can see there in the photograph. I'm going to start working on the background. I'm going to take some brown, yellow, my Tart green, my Hauser green, and my antique gold. In the photograph, we see all these different color leaves and everything. Because we're really focusing in on the apple and not so much of the background, I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to start blotting in the background with a mixture of all of these different colors. In this case, there's really not going to be any mistakes that can be made. I'm just filling in the background. I'm going to do a few leaf shapes to kind of lend to the fact that there are leaves in the background, but we're not really focused in on there. So it's just going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge of a mixture of all these colors. And whenever you're painting on a canvas like this with these little sides, don't forget to get your sides. You don't want to paint just to the front. You definitely want to make sure that you're wrapping the paint around. Now, right around the apple, I am going to add some yellow fall leaves. I think that will be a nice pop of color, and it will actually also make the red really pop as well. I'm going to do a similar technique to the base where we see all these different color, fall color little grass down here. And this time I'm just adding that sage green that I used earlier. I'm using my antique gold. I'm using regular yellow and brown. And I'm just going to start adding in these little squiggly lines at the base to kind of give it that same look as we see at the base of the photograph. So I'm starting off with darker colors of brown and then mixing in a little sage on the top and then mixing in that antique gold and yellow as well. And of course, remember that I want it to be like this photograph, but not exactly like. We're doing more of a cartoon look. The photograph is really just the inspiration for the painting. At this point, the leaves, the dark leaves should be, the first coat should be nice and dry. So I'm going to go back over those darker leaves with that Hauser green. I'm going to add maybe a few leaves here and there around it as well, just filling in open space that feels like it might need a little extra. And then I'm just taking my Tart green and I'm adding in a little bit of highlights to those leaves. Now, same thing. Now, a lot of the other paint that I've used is already dry. So in this case, I'm taking that berry cobbler and I'm painting back over my little cranberries. I'm going to go ahead and fill in my mouse again with some white. And I'm also going to start adding some highlighting around the apple. You can see where the hole is. There's white in the photograph where the light is hitting the apple. So I'm adding that. I'm also highlighting some of the yellow leaves and also the darker leaves. Those yellow leaves, I want to add a little bit more depth to them. So I'm taking my antique gold and a little bit of that Tart green again, and I'm mixing it. And then I'm filling in the middle of those leaves to add a little bit of depth, because of course leaves are not one solid color. And then you see here and there I'm also highlighting the other darker leaves on the bottom to give them a little bit more depth and color as well. Now I'm going to take my burnt sienna here. This is the color I'm going to use for the little acorns that are also sitting outside the apple. So I'm going to fill in those colors. While I'm at it, I found this tomato red, which I think is great for that apple. So I'm just going to fill in the outer areas of the apple in that tomato red again, because it's more of a tomato red than a true red color. I also found a color called berry cobbler. So we're using cherry and berry cobbler today. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that to my cranberries to give them more than just one color. Now I'm also going to take my berry and a little bit of white. And the berry is so brilliant gradient that I don't have to mix hardly any in. And I just am trying to give just the slightest of pink to the little ears of my tiny little baby mouse. Now I'm going to take my black. This part, honestly, a lot of the times when I'm going to do tiny little dots, I would just use a very, very fine permanent marker like for eyes. But because I just bought these paintbrushes and they're super pointy at the end still and there's no damage to them, I'm going to go ahead and put in the eyes and the little nose on Brie with my paintbrush. And then after that, what you're seeing here is I'm just going over the painting one more time, looking for any areas where I really should add a little bit more detail. I'm taking my black and I'm just outlining a few areas for definition. And then there's our little tiny mouse painting with our apple. Now the next one we have here is our little young version of Havarti. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting this canvas too. Here I'm going to use my dark gray and I'm just going to start painting in all around our little guy here in this dark gray, kind of outlining the mouse a little bit, painting in that wood, and it'll be a nice base coat in gray. My Hauser green again, which we used in the other painting. I'm going to do that as the backdrop color for behind his head, the umbrella, and a little bit around his tail. Now I'm just taking yellow and I'm going to fill in that leaf with the base coat of yellow. Here's my English lace. I'm going to fill in all the areas where his little hands, feet, his ears, and his tail are. And now for the base coat of this mouse, I'm going to be using brown. Even though he is a dark gray mouse, the brown will really help the gray and the white to stand out later. This is Spiced Pumpkin again, and I'm going to be using this as the base color for the little scarf. Now I'm taking my dark gray, my white, my black, and my brown, and I'm going to start filling in those wood chips or wood board that he's standing on. I'm using the black to really highlight the different pieces, and then I'm going back in with my black and filling in around his feet, a little bit around the tail, and this is all going to really help him really help the mouse stand out as we get going on the painting. I am doing a little bit of a mixture here to kind of lighten my gray up in areas, and then I will go ahead and add that. I'm going to use my white to highlight. You can see in the photograph there is actually a lot of lighter colors. A lot of white is actually mixed in. And then of course you see browns, dark browns, blacks. There's actually a few other colors. There's actually leaves in the background, but I'm not going to really pay attention to those. I'm just going to really focus in on these other pieces because it's such a tiny painting. Now I'm taking my white and again I'm going to fill in a little bit on the ear, and now I'm just going to start brushing in his face and his body. For his body and face, because he's furry, I am using little light brush strokes so that you can actually still see the brown a little bit on the inside. Now what I'm going to do is take white and that dark gray and I'm going to mix it a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and put a layer of the dark gray and white on as well. Now his little belly is white and the bottom part of his face is also pretty white, so I'm going to really focus the darker colors around those areas. Then I have a little bit more of this darker orange color that I'm going to fill in his scarf a little bit more again. I'm actually doing little dots on the scarf. It's going to give it a little bit more of a depth. Now I've taken my Tart green and my antique gold and I'm mixing those colors together, and we're going to start putting those in the leaf umbrella. I also am taking just a slight bit of that Spiced Pumpkin and I just mixed it in just to get to the outer edges of the leaf umbrella. You can see in the photograph there's a little bit of orange, so I did just blend in a little bit of orange there as well. I'm taking my Hauser green again, the darker color, and I'm starting to fill in the background once again now that the first layer has been dried. This is also going to give me the ability to go around the leaf umbrella and really sharpen the edges of it to make it look more like the photograph. Filling in the ears in the same light pink blend that I used in the other photograph. So I'm just using a little bit of berry cobbler and also a little bit of white. And in this case, I'm doing the ear, the tail, and the little feet and hands also. So I just want to sharpen up the face and the body. So I'm taking more of my gray and my black, and I'm just starting to fill in all of the edges of the body, and I'm filling in around the feet area. And then once that's completed, I'm going to take some white and I'm going to make a little football shape where his eye is, and then I'm going to add a little dot for black to create his little eyeball. Once that's done, I am going to add in a little bit of pink for the little nose. And now lastly, now that the leaf is dry, I want to add in the little stem that's acting as his little umbrella handle. The scarf, to me, it just needs a little bit more of a pop of color. So I have this much brighter orange color here, and I'm just going to add in a little bit more of that color to just pop that scarf out, because it is the only piece in the painting that is that really bright color. So I think that it's important that it does stand out. All right, and then just like the end of the other painting, I'm just going to take my black and I'm going to go through and I'm going to do a little bit of highlighting. And if there's anything else that I feel like I need to add, like right now I'm adding a little bit more pink to the ears and tail. And then there we go. I'm done with both of the miniature paintings. But that's not all, folks. Oh no, because we still have other accessories that we need to make. So I found this little laser cut piece here, and I think that this would just be a really fun little item to go above the bed. So I'm going to just take my staining pen here in walnut and I'm going to go ahead and stain that, and that's an easy completed project. I also thought it would be cute if Brie was really into self-help, and so I found, of course, off the internet, the cover of Who Moved My Cheese. I shrunk it down, printed it up, and now I'm cutting it out, and I'm just using my tacky glue to glue the cover on top of my book. So now Brie has her own copy of Who Moved My Cheese. So for the next project, I would like to make a little candle centerpiece. It's actually going to go on the dresser. I found this little wood round here, and then I have these little gold, they're beads. I think they're beads. And of course, I'm going to use my polymer clay. I'm using translucent and white, and I'm going to mix those together. Now, I'm not going to show the candle making process here in this video. I have another video. I'll put it in the description if you're interested in how I made these translucent candles. But I did go ahead and roll them, bake them, and then once they were still warm, I shoved them down into those beads, so that would act as almost like a decorative exterior to the candles. And right now, they're still warm, so I'm just shoving my toothpick right up the center of them, and that's going to be my tiny little candle wicks. I'm using a yellow toothpick so that they almost look like they might be lit. Then I'm adding my tacky glue, and then I'm just going to go ahead and glue my little candles down into the center there. Next, I have this basket of dried floral, but I don't really care for this basket, so I'm going to remove that dried floral, and then I'm going to cut down some of the flowers, and in groups of 3, I'm going to just place those around these candles to give it a very nice display. And I'm just gluing them down with my tacky glue. Next, I have this little straw hat. So I'm going to do a very similar thing that I did to the candle display. I'm just going to add a little bit of tacky glue to one side. And then I also have these little pieces here that I found. They're just super random. And I'm going to glue down some more of those dried flowers. Try to do a nice mixture of some of the pink, the yellow, and the white flowers mixed in with a little bit of greenery. And then I'm going to add other little piece to it. They kind of look like cattails to me, but they're not. But that's kind of what they look like. So that's what I'm going to refer them to as. I'm just going to add one extra here. I think that would be just a fun little detail. And then there you go. Our hat is also completed. I also have this quart tray here. I don't know what it originally went to. And then I have an oversized candlestick here that's metal. So I'm going to make a little table out of that just by using my super glue. That'll be a nice piece. Okay, so this is a project I made a long time ago. This is actually a little wheelbarrow and I didn't complete it. Basically, I just took a half of a walnut, glued a couple sticks to it. You can see there's additional sticks there as little feet. And then over here is the top of an acorn that is going to act as the small wheel in the front. And I put a toothpick through it. And then I guess I moved on to another project and didn't finish it. So I'm just going to cut down the sides of the toothpick and glue it in place. And so now I've got my little wheelbarrow here, which is perfect for a mouse, right? With the little walnut. So I found this little piece of wood. And now what I'm going to do is take my tacky glue. I'm going to put that piece of wood in there, and then I'm going to also add in all the rest of the dried flowers and those little cattail pieces as well, so that it looks like there is just a little wheelbarrow of flowers, and I'm going to actually add that to the garden. I found these little LED lights at the hobby store and they were on sale, so I couldn't pass them up. I am going to add these to the room box as lighting, and then I found these little clips and I'm going to clip them in. And the reason I'm doing it this way obviously is because I don't want to do anything permanent, because I want to be able to store everything away when I'm done. So I'm using those clips, and if you don't like the way that looks, I have these little fall leaves here, decorative fall leaves that I can just put in to kind of cover them. And I'm kind of doing it one-handed, so they're not really staying that well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and hang these pictures up, and I'm happy to see that Tiny Whitney is there to help me. Although I don't know if she's necessarily helping me. I think she's giving me a hard time. Yeah, I see. I know, which way, which way? Quit laughing, just tell me, is it straight or is it not straight? Okay, you're done? Okay, bye. All right, so let's go ahead and add on the rest of our accessories. I'm gonna use one of those leaves as a little rug. We'll put the book next to the rocking chair. And then we'll add our little wheelbarrow outside. And of course, we have to add little Brie into the room now that it's all completed, and turn the lights on. All right, so this was a several-week project. I think the overall outcome is super cute. Of course, I added a little charcuterie board there with cheese and fruits so that Brie could have her favorite little snacks. All right, and let's not forget that once the season is over, I can just easily pack everything away and store it for next fall. And if you want, you can add a little fall sachet, so next year, when you open up your box, it will smell delicious. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm Whitney. This is my little scarecrow, Tiny Whitney, and we are both very appreciative of you being here. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Hate to ask that every time, but it definitely helps the channel. This week's show is actually brought to you by suggestion from one of our viewers. If you have suggestions for me and like to see something in an upcoming video, please feel free to put that in the comments below. We really appreciate you being here, and don't forget, in this crazy life, it's the little things that matter.